Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Ghost in Depth. In today's episode, we'll be reviewing Amplify and Dead Silence in a comparative manner, so I called it Amplify versus Dead Silence. We're going to study each perk individually, then how they interact with each other, and I will be offering an opinion on as to whether which one is more powerful than the other, and if that's the case, how to avoid detection and vice versa, because stealth and being able to detect stealth enemies is a very crucial part of this game when you're playing Search and Destroy or Search and Rescue, which I'm playing Search and Destroy right here for the first time ever in Call of Duty Ghost outside of the alpha testing that I got to do a long time ago. I'm running a FAD with a silencer and a VMR. I'm also running Amplify and Dead Silence, so I'm going to avoid detection with Dead Silence and use Amplify to hear enemies, and you're going to see me snap to enemies in locations that when I probably should not know anybody is there and shoot them. You'll note that the audio is muted in the gameplay portion because unfortunately in order to use my headsets with Xbox One I have to set voice or voice chat through TV, and I don't think you wanted to hear J-Hub doing callouts and talking on top of my commentary. It would be a little bit confusing, but we're going to have a very nice rich audio portion when we get to the testing of Amplify versus Dead Silence and see which one counters the other one. First things we want to talk about is the effects of Amplify. Amplify reduces your footstep sounds to yourself. So there is a noise that only you can hear, and that's how your footsteps sound to you. Amplify will reduce the noise of your footsteps to your ears only so that you don't confuse them with enemy footsteps. Don't get confused and think that this makes your footsteps more quiet to enemies. They remain the same volume, but it's quieter to yourself so that you don't mix it up. It also increases enemy footstep sounds so that they're easier to hear, and it affects all users whether they're running Dead Silence or not. There is a flat increase of noise. Dead Silence effects reduces your footstep sounds to yourself. Again, this time you don't hear your footsteps. It's even more powerful than Amplify, and it decreases your footstep sounds to enemies so that enemies should not be able to hear your footsteps unless their ears are right by your feet, in which case you probably should have already killed them anyway. It is a much more profound effect on both of these than Amplify. You'll notice there are no numbers in those descriptions, and that's because I don't have the proper equipment to test Amplify and Dead Silence in a scientific manner. I only have a very simple audio input to my capture card, and using that I can't study frequency. I can get an idea of the amplitude, but I can't get an exact decibel reading. It won't even be the same across all consoles and setups, or how it would work in surround sound, or a multitude of other factors. So I believe that a qualitative test between Amplify and Dead Silence and how they interact with each other is the best. So I'm going to stop talking in just a second, and I'm going to skip to a series of tests, and it's going to tell you exactly what the listener has and what the runner or walker or the person making noise has, be it Dead Silence or Amplify or whatever, so that you will understand exactly how these sound and how they interact with each other, and then I will be doing commentary about those interactions after we're done playing all of the testing clips. So that's probably the longest segment on any in-depth episode without me speaking. So let's move to what you heard and conclusions that we can draw. Number one is that Amplify does allow you to hear dead silence users, but not all that well. I am a person that does not use headsets very often. My ears are a little sensitive, so I don't turn the volume up very high. For this Search and Destroy game, I actually turned it up much higher than normal just to get good gameplay. However, a trained pro, a pro player, an MLG game battles guy, a sweaty tryhard that has his Tritons or Astros on maximum, they should be able to hear dead silence users pretty well. Obviously not as well as a normal runner, but they'll be able to hear them easily enough. The simplest and most effective way to avoid being detected by an Amplify user is simply crouch walking or prone crawling, because for some reason it removes all movement noise. Even if you don't have dead silence and you just have no sort of stealth perks and you crouch walk, an Amplify user probably will not be able to hear you. So when it comes down to the last minute, when you're really worried about being sound hoard or something, my best recommendation is to just crouch walk. And I know that sounds silly. It's like, oh yeah, we've known that since COD 4, but I'm telling you, it makes absolutely no noise. It's crazy. I heard nothing on the crouch walking test. So if you're worried about being detected, I would just highly recommend crouch walking, and I think it'll do you a lot of good. As to where these perks are useful, they're very useful on the pro scene in almost any scenario because you're playing at an extremely high level of competition, and being able to hear somebody coming is very important. In a public match, especially any sort of respawn game mode, domination, blitz, team deathmatch, they're not going to be that useful because it's going to be a very chaotic game with a lot of explosions and things going on. You probably won't be able to hear the footsteps all that well anyway. However, it will be very useful in almost any hardcore mode because they're played slower, and they are extremely useful in both search and rescue and search and destroy. So those are the two game modes that I would highly recommend that you try these out on. And as to whether they're overpowered or unfair or unbalanced, I'm actually not going to be throwing text on the screen for this part because it's an opinion section in In-Depth. It's kind of a double-edged sword. As of right now, Amplify is like an ultimate perk. It's an uncounterable perk. There's no way to beat it except for crouch walking, which most people don't like to do anyway. And dead silence users can still be heard, though not as well. In this sense, it gives people ultimate awareness of the ability. It's like having a second radar to where they can hear everybody. And you get a lot of complaining, especially from the pro scene and from the search and destroy scene, that all you need is good headsets and Amplify and you're good to go. And when I play search and destroy or search and rescue, that's absolutely true. I really don't need dead silence as much as I need Amplify so that I can hear people. It's a very easy perk to use. However, if you were to make the exact opposite decision and say that, okay, we're going to make dead silent user footsteps completely silent where nobody will be able to hear them, then dead silence becomes the ultimate perk. It becomes the uncounterable perk. And even if you run, your Amplify and you have your headsets up to max and you've got your surround sound just directly wired into your eardrums, people can still sneak up on you in an extremely unrealistic and unusual way. So, no matter which way you go, balancing on the ultimate side where Amplify always works or dead silence always keeps you off of Amplify or whatever, it kind of screws people up by making a perfect stealth perk or a perfect awareness perk, and I believe that the answer lies somewhere more in the middle. I would say that being able to hear dead silence users with Amplify makes sense, that one perk counters the other. However, as of right now, even a novice sound whore like myself, somebody that rarely uses headsets because ear problems, I like my headsets, I just try not to use them too much, that I can hear them that easily and kill them. I believe that's a balancing issue, and I believe that the effectiveness of dead silence should be increased so that it is considerably harder to hear it. I think the best way to do it would be to change the range. So in what you've seen, the volume changes, but the range at which you can hear footsteps does not change. I would alter the range at which the footsteps on dead silence are able to be heard by Amplify, so that if you have Amplify, by the time you hear a dead silence user, they're very close to you, and it's going to force you to react in an aggressive manner, and it'll still retain a balance, a warning for you, and a fairness to them, and that your warning is very minimal. That's the way I would do it. However, there is a supposed patch or balance coming up on this in the future, and we'll see what's done about it. Well guys, that's all for this episode of In-Depth. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something useful. If you'd like to check out the previous episode on the VKS sniper rifle, you can click the box on the left. That'll open a new window. If you'd like to check out the next episode, that's going to be on the AK-12 versus the R5, which is going to be a very interesting episode, I promise. You can click that box when it's live. It'll open up. As always, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Drifter out.
Enemy SATCOM spotted. SATCOM ready. Kill confirmed.